in terms of being. I don't know.
I should read this one out then, because I don't know who this is from, but it is, are vegetarians more aware?
Pass. I don't know. It's an interesting question. I'd love to know the background to that question, as to why that would be. There is a counter-argument to say that possibly if you were a complete vegetarian, and it might be a reason why Buddhists and such like are vegetarians, is that that can help the mystic experience. You know, because effectively, I deal with the mystic experience in the books.
Well, things like diet, you mean, affects...
Yeah, it's possible.
Living at high altitudes and so on.
It opens the communication channels within the brain. That's why aesthetics and people who starve themselves and everything can open up these channels and see visions and things.
And you mentioned drugs, didn't you, like ketamine?
I like ketamine, yeah. And DMT is fascinating, and I do suggest anybody that's interested in this, a guy called Dr. Rick Strassman has done some wonderful work. Strassman, yeah. Has done some fascinating work on a chemical called DMT, and the things he's been able to reproduce are amazing.
This is where, what happens then? People
start to have experiences where they sense a presence. They have experiences where they see aliens. For instance, an example, I was interviewed on the Whitley Strieber website a few weeks ago, and Whitley came on. I was interviewed by somebody. Whitley came on at the end and he said, "I'm finding your book really fascinating," because of course Whitley believes that these alien encounters were part of him. Yeah. Were part of him.
All right.
And I'm waiting for feedback now, because I'll be due back on that station in a few weeks' time, and it's going to be interesting to know what Whitley makes of the theory. Because, again, I think alien abductions have elements of this, and also have elements of what Rick Strassman is talking about.
So you're saying that the experience you're having of an alien abduction could be put there by your daemon?
Maybe.
For some purpose?
I don't know.
Or it could be your misinterpretation?
Could be.
Of an experience that you're having with... Because a lot of these experiences seem to happen to people while they're kind of semi-conscious or unconscious or asleep or...
As if they're kind of
taken.
Hypnagogic states, which is the term, you know, just before you go to sleep when you see images and things. But very much the image of the classic grey is very much an archetype. And indeed, a guy called Patrick Harper deals with something he calls daemonic reality. And Patrick almost mirror images my theory, where he's dealing with the demonic as being imps and fairies and gnomes and kobolds and things like that we see out there. And he says it's the same elements of the subconscious, but in a different way. He extracts it. The outside is affecting the inside, whereas I think the inside is affecting the outside. Okay,
we've got about 4 minutes left. What I wanted to talk about quickly then was... what we see is, according to this, your hypothesis, is like a movie, if you like, of reality.
I'd do a better analogy there. I'd say it's like a super-duper computer game.
Okay.
Whereby all the possible alternatives are already encoded into the scenario.
Okay, but and then we have some kind of choice as to which road we take and all the rest of it. However, there is another... reality outside the IMAX, the Bohemian IMAX theatre, if you like, and that is the really weird stuff that the daemon can access, if you like, even though you have said that the daemon on like first-time visitors isn't really aware that he's not you.
Yeah. But we are working on this, as I keep mentioning this work that Carl is doing, in the sense that the daemon can also access almost a uber daemon. You know, that there is a daemon behind the daemon.
So the daemon's got a daemon?
Yeah, it's a possibility. They'd also debated whether there is a super daemon which could explain precognition, which could explain telepathy and everything else, as if there's a field, and the daemon can tune into the field at a higher level, the reality behind the reality. What, as I said, the Gnostics call the pleroma.
Okay, well, let's talk quickly about people who exhibit symptoms of schizophrenia, for instance. Your hypothesis is that these people, even more than people who have temporal lobe epilepsy or other kinds of epilepsy or migraines or so on, or things in their sleep and so on, have access to this pleroma.
Yeah, have access to the communication channels with the daemon. The daemon can communicate more easily, but also, they have access to the pleroma. I suppose because we haven't discussed this, but one of the major writers that influenced me is a guy called Professor David Bohm. And David Bohm suggested that reality...
This is B-O-H-M.
B-O-H-M. And David Bohm suggested that the reality that we perceive is holographically generated. It's a hologram. Another guy called Professor Carl Pribram at Georgetown University simultaneously proposed that the brain works on holographic principles. So we have a hologram processing a hologram, which works into my theory in a very peculiar way, because it means the pleroma is a hologram. And effectively what, as I say, happens is during schizophrenia, the person sees the reality behind the reality, and it literally drives them insane, because they're seeing a fractionalized world where time just goes nowhere. One of my associates, his son is profoundly autistic and has Asperger's syndrome and temporal lobe epilepsy. This lad is profoundly precognitive, but his worldview is so shattered that he doesn't know whether this happened a second ago or 5 years ago or even sometime in the future. It's because his worldview is just shattered because he can't control what's happening outside.
I could see how that would really confuse you.
Yeah. You can, the schizophrenia is a classic example of, if you look at schizophrenics and how they perceive the world, and you realise that the channels of communication, Aldous Huxley's concept, is wide open.
Anthony, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for. Thank you to everyone for watching our special 2-hour show, and for those who texted, and thanks to my very special guest, Anthony Peake. If you want to learn more about his theories, why not visit www.anthonypeake.com. That's Anthony with an H, Peake with an E at the end. Or buy his books, Is There Life After Death and The Daemon, I beg your pardon. If you've enjoyed this show, please tell all your friends. Next week, Daemons permitting, we'll be back with yet another exciting show that might even change your life. Until then, remember, and this really does have a different meaning tonight, they're watching you, watching us, watching them. Cheerio.